Good evening. Welcome to tonight's Shir. It's Thursday of Parshas Achrei. Bez Hashem will, through the summer, we'll keep the Shir on Thursday evening. One cheshbon of swaying this way is because there is a Shir Chassidus on Sunday evening in Beis Lubavitch given by Rabbi Shalom Bersadak, continuing from the Shir which his father gave, my Shver, Alav Shalom, over many, many years, and some of our regular participants here joining that shir. So Thursday is the option for the moment. Okay, so let's go into some post or some shilas which came up before Pesach, during Pesach. So the first one we have here is, may I grind coffee beans on Yom Tov with a hand grinder? So let's explain something. We have clearly a halacha in the Torah that we are allowed to do on Yom Tov, meleches oichel nefesh. Ach asher ye'ochel nefesh u'levada ye'osel lochem. On Yom Tov, we are allowed to do melachos associated with making food. So what's the problem with, let's say, could I go and pick apples from my apple tree in my garden on Yom Tov? And the answer is no, you're not allowed to. In this itself, this is clear that you cannot pick apples from your tree on Yom Tov. Question is whether it's osem in HaTorah or midrabanan. And the Alter Rebbe takes the view that it's midrabanan, whereas it looks like some Rishonim hold it's deraisa. But either way, it seems to be that the logic for this is that kind of melacha which is done in bulk. So let's keep to the Alter Rebbe for the moment. It's midrabanan, but the kind of melacha which is done in bulk for several days' supply, that may not be done on Yom Tov. The kind of melacha which is done for immediate use, for today's use, and it's got to do with food, obviously, that may be done on Yom Tov. So the Alter Rebbe is quite emphatic to grate grain, horseradish. This is something which we normally do for several days' supply. What we buy ready-made in the jars, but it keeps for a few days. So therefore, the Alter Rebbe is quite strong that you wouldn't be allowed to do it on Yom Tov. Something like carrots, to grate carrots on Yom Tov. Well, since they would lose a little bit of their flavor if they were done in advance, therefore you are allowed to do them on Yom Tov with a shinoi. You're allowed to grate your carrots, talking about with a hand grater, not into a bowl, but let's say onto the counter, and then afterwards you put into a bowl. So it's a grating which is there's a little bit of a loss of flavor, and therefore it's permitted, but with a shinoi. So now the question which we're dealing with, this is in Siman Tov Kuf Daled in Hilchos Yom Tov. What about grinding coffee beans? You bought your beans before Pesach, and you want to know whether you can grind them on Yom Tov to have freshly ground coffee. Does freshly ground coffee taste that much better than coffee which was ground a few days ago? I'm a shvacha connoisseur in coffee, so I can't really comment on that. But what we have here is on the screen, on the top of the page, we have from the Sharet Shuvah, which is a commentary on the Shulchan Aruch, and he quotes the Ponim Me'iros. So early, the Charles Shuvah Sefer, about a couple of generations before the Alter Rebbe, and he writes that you are allowed to grind coffee in a small coffee mill, hand coffee mill. He then says that the Birkei Yosef, the Chidah, disagrees, or he questions this. And then subsequently the Chidah quotes in Machzik Brocha. He quotes from the Rabbi Yaakov Emden that in a personal, as a domestic grinder coffee mill would be okay, but in a commercial, in a shops kind of grinder, that wouldn't be allowed even the Yom Tov Sheni. Then he quotes Chastei David, David Pardu, who says that in principle you are allowed to, but it's better to be machmir. And then so that's the Sharet Tshuva. Then we look at the left of your screen. You have here the Biur Halacha from the Mishnah Berurah. He quotes to the Chaye Odom about grinding on Yom Tov. According to the Rashba, it's Midoraisa. So this is what I mentioned before, that according to some Rishonim, the earlier Malachas, before the stage of making a dough, of kneading flour into dough, the earlier Malachas of harvesting and winnowing and all that, and grinding too, that would be awesome in HaTorah. And therefore, the Chaye Odom says, if that's the case, if grinding wheat into flour would be Isum in HaTorah, so the same thing, grinding coffee would also be Isugam. And even though it's going to lose a little bit of its strong flavor, but that doesn't help. That's how he understands the Rashba. Comes along the Mishnah Berurah himself, and he says, even according to the Rashba, who says that grinding flour is also in HaTorah, but certainly the definition of what is melacha or not is in the realm of the Chachamim to decide what's also, what's not, and the definition, therefore, is still going to be influenced by this, whether it's done for bulk, for several days' supply, and if not. And then he actually quotes the Rashba explicitly in the Sefer Avodas HaKodesh that the reason why the earlier labors of preparing bread are also is because the Nasel Yomim Harbi, because they're done in bulk. So it's the Menatorim Midrabanon, but the logic seems to be the same thing, the kind of stuff which is done for several days' supply. Therefore, he concludes that grinding coffee, if it's a small coffee mill, well, you only put in there just enough for 1 or 2 brews. And therefore, Efsher, that is not subject to the Drabonon. And indeed, he quotes the Sharet Tshuva, says the same. And even the Chaye Odom is a little bit, well, he says about with Al Yedei Nochri. But Kitzer, what we're seeing is that there are matirim, there are poskim who do allow the grinding of coffee on Yom Tov. Others are machmir, and so I think it's a little bit left up to the decision of is it a tzorech gadol or is it not a tzorech gadol. So it's better to be machmir, but if it's very significant to the person to have their freshly ground coffee, then there is room to be meichel. Let's move on to our next point. So this is something which interesting, how you have seasonal, you have shilas, which, we've had Pesach for many years. It's the first time I've had this shilah from several shluchim. They're making public sdorim, and and then they do a seder with the family. So the question is, I'm doing a public seder, it's going to take me an hour and a half, whatever. Am I allowed to make kiddush with them and drink some wine, or do I have to run it all on dry? And his question is, could I make kiddush with them at the public seder? Then I'll come home and do kiddush again for my family. We'll start from Kaddish all over again. Is that okay or not? So, and then another variation of this, I was asked from Russia, where because this year is a leap year, consequently, we're later in April, and the nights are already getting quite short. And there, in addition to the questions we had so far, they struggle in northern region is that your window to be able to do your Seder is that much smaller because you're soon going to hit Alos HaShachar. And therefore, there's not enough time to be able to do a Seder with the people in your public Seder and to do a full Seder with the family. There's simply not enough time in the night to be able to do both stories. And therefore, they're asking the question differently. Am I allowed to do the first part of the Seder at the public Seder? I'll go up all the way through till Magid. And then I'll lead them at that point But then then I'll come home and my wife will have held fort and they've done the first part of the Seder with the family, and then I'll just join them from a matzah so for the end of the Seder. So therefore he wants to drink the first 2 cups of wine at the public Seder and then join the family for the second part of the Seder. Which myself are just thinking it's what an amazing Messias Nefesh to neglect to give up Seder with your own family to go and deal with your public Seder. But that's a separate discussion. Now, this idea of making a public Seder, this idea of going to other people's houses to help them run the Seder is not discussed in the Gemara. It is discussed in the Rif and brought in a whole simon, a dedicated simon in Shulchan Aruch, Simon Toch Pei Daled. The whole simon is Misha Roitze Lasos HaSeder B'Kama Mekaymus. He feels responsible for a family who, for some reason, do not have the leadership there to be able to run a Seder. So he wants to help them and do his own Seder. So it talks about the various options. Talks about doing first your Seder and then going to them, or in the middle of your Seder going to them. And then it talks about this option. What about if I want to make their Seder first? Which is very much the question which we have, to run someone else's Seder before you do your Seder at home. So Shulchan Aruch writes, Borich Lahu, he can say the brachas for them, but he doesn't eat anything. Then he comes home and makes kiddush for his family. So he's going to be in this family. He's going to go who don't have someone to lead the seder. He'll make for them kiddush. He'll make Be'er Pri HaGofen, and he'll say the whole long bracha of Mekadesh Yisrael Vazmanim, and he'll say the bracha on Karpas also. He'll lead them and say all the brachas. And he's not going to eat anything, not going to drink anything. And why is he allowed to do so? Normally, I cannot make a bracha Be'er Pri HaEtz for you. But here it's a Birchas HaMitzvahs. And Birchas HaMitzvahs, we have, even the Hagofen is part of the Kiddush. And therefore, I say the bracha, I'm allowed to say the bracha for them, and they eat with my bracha. That's okay. But I'm not allowed to eat or drink. Says the Mogen Avraham. Why may this fine fellow, why he's not allowed to eat anything, drink anything? Because he's not allowed to eat before Kiddush. And when he goes to those houses and he makes Kiddush, but he's not Yotze with that Kiddush. So if he would eat, he'd be eating before Kiddush. If he drinks the wine, he's drinking before Kiddush because he is not Yotze. Why is he not Yotze? Because he's not eating there. If he does eat there, he'll have to do Birchas Hamazon. I really don't understand why the Mogen Avraham had to throw this in, or what does it contribute to the discussion. But Pashtus, he's not allowed to eat because he's not Yotze from the Kiddush. On this, the Pri Megadim asks why, what's the problem? Why can't he go to these houses, this house, and he'll make Kiddush, and he'll be Yotze Kiddush b'Mokim Suda? Because when we say that Kiddush has to be Mokim Suda, we have in Shulchan Aruch Siman Reish Ayin Gimel, back in Hilchos Shabbos, that some say you're Yotze with other foods, particularly with wine. If you have another cup of wine, you're Yotze Kiddush b'Mokim Suda. So why could this person visiting other people's Sdorim, helping them, why couldn't he be Yotze Kiddush by drinking another glass of wine? And then he'll come back and make Kiddush for his family. So this is what the Pri Megadim asks. Let's now read what the Alter Rebbe says on all of this. If you want to go to the other families and make the Sdorim elsewhere and then come home, you may do that, but you have to be careful not to eat there because you're not allowed to drink. You're not allowed to eat before Kiddush. And you're not Yotze by the Kiddush which you do there because you're Eino Soyed Shom Bevotehem. So it seems to be repeating, a bit clearer than Mogen Avraham. Since you're not eating there, so then it's not Kiddush, but you're lacking Kiddush b'Mokim Suda. So, but back to our question, why could he not be Yotzer Kiddush, Mokin Suda, by having another glass of wine? So really, I did not find any clear explanation. But what I would suggest is, looking in Siman Resh Ayin Gimel, why is a glass of wine Kiddush b'Mokim Suda? So the way it's presented in the Tur Resh Ayin Gimel is because on a glass of wine you make a Baruch Achroina, Baruch Atah Hashem, Al HaGefen, Al PeHaGefen, Baruch in the whole Arichas. So it's got a chashivas. Again, the reason why a glass of wine is enough for Kiddush b'Mokim Suda is because the revius of wine has got a chashivas. Now, that possibly is actually the problem on the night of Pesach, because we're very, very sensitive. It shouldn't look like you're mostif al minyan hakaisis. You shouldn't be adding. There's a takon of dafka arba kaisis, and you have several times in Shulchan Aruch. You have shaloye roach mostif al minyan hakaisis. For example, you have the case of a person who drank a cup of wine without reclining, and the svara is he should drink another cup. And on the other hand, the downside is most of our minyan crisis. So we have this sensitivity. We don't want to be most of our minyan crisis. So possibly by having another glass of wine, you're doing it because you want to have mokim suda. But as a result, it's another cup of wine for a choshev purpose. And therefore that would raise a problem of most of our minyan crisis. And that seems to be and that's what I'm suggesting, is the reason why the Shulchan Aruch says v'loy ochel v'loy toim. You make it. It's very nice. You're making kiddush at this public seder, but you can't drink anything, because if you have another glass of wine, it's going to be most of our minyan cases. That's just what I svara. Now, having said that, if you're running a public seder and then you're going to do a full seder at home, you shouldn't be drinking the wine at the public seder, and you'll have to manage on dry. If you do drink your cup of wine because you felt you're desperate, you couldn't manage otherwise, so then, and you make kiddush, obviously, you could still make kiddush again when you come home. As the Pri Megadim had said, now, I want to share with you a very important point about this. And that is that normally we have a rule that you cannot be moitzi, you cannot say a bracha for someone else unless they can't manage on their own. There's a concept of arvus. We have a responsibility that another yid should do the mitzvahs. So if I come home, there's someone at home who cannot make kiddush, so then I have a mitzvah to make kiddush for them. It could be an adult, it could be a child who's higia l'chinuch, so I can make it, that justifies making kiddush again. What about if the family at home are quite capable of making kiddush themselves? Is it justified that Tati comes home from the public seder and does kiddush again for the family? And very interesting, in the year Tovshin Chov Zayin, it was Rosh Hashanah, it was a Thursday and Friday going into Shabbos. And in those years, it was still a seder of someone would make kiddush for Shabbos, just after Shkia. The term used is Poiris Mapo Mekadesh, and they continued the Farbrengen into Friday night. So whoever was Yotze Kiddush through this Poiris Mapo Mekadesh could now continue saying L'chaim, etc. The Rebbe, at the end of the Farbrengen, said that whoever was Yotze from the Kiddush, Poiris Mapo Mekadesh, when he goes home, he can still make Kiddush again for his family. So, and then on the Sukkot that year, obviously the same Kvias, also Thursday, Friday, and Shabbos. And the Rebbe told them told the Gabber to announce this, that whoever was Yotze to the Kiddush from Peres Mapa Mekadesh can still go home and make Kiddush for his family. Now, this is quite interesting, because I would suspect that some of the families in Crown Heights, the women folk who weren't at the Farbrengen, were quite capable of making their own Kiddush reading from the Siddur, etc. And still the Rebbe said that they can make Kiddush again for their family. And so what I'm suggesting is that there is the Shitta of the Pri Chodosh, who holds that you can, even if you are Yotze Kiddush, you can make Kiddush for someone who has you can make Kiddush for someone who hasn't Kiddush, even if that person is capable of doing their own Kiddush. So he allows the Arvus even for someone who is able to address their duty themselves. But let's move on. What about then the story of the in Russia? There I felt first of all, there's a greater need. We talked about the very narrow window of being able to do the mitzvahs halayla. The other point is that there they are staying on for the second cup of wine. They want to drink the first wine and the second cup of wine. Now, once the drinking says 2 cups of wine for sure, and they have the revius for the second cup, so then there's no question of Moisif Alminyan HaKosis, because that's part of the agenda. They're having the second cup of wine. And so they would have to say a bracha acharena, obviously, before going home. I was hesitant whether bracha acharena constitutes a hefsik in the sequence of Arba Kosos. I was pleased to see actually in Tur, in Tov Ayin Dalad, he brings a whole list of early poskim who debate should we say bracha acharena? We have 4 cups of wine, we only say bracha acharena once. Why don't we say bracha acharena earlier? Or some say you should say bracha acharena. So therefore, the bracha acharena is not a problem. I think I want to add one more point about this. And I mentioned about Alos HaShachar. Now, L'chatchila, that's for sure that we should be having the kazayas matzah before chatzos. Very important point. I remember years ago, someone told me that his family, they would always arrange a public seder, and then they'd come home and they'd start their seder at home 1 o'clock in the morning, and they went through the night, whatever that's. But the kazayas matzah was happening after chatzos. Now, we say every day in davening, you say, the Korban Pesach, the cutoff point is Chatzos. So despite the Mishnah at the beginning of Brachas, which says that Kol Masha Omrat Chatzos, mitzvos Yatshia Lamud HaShachar, that is true for other mitzvahs, but as far as Korban Pesach is concerned, as far as mitzvahs Matzah is concerned, there are Rishonim who hold that the mitzvah of matzah, like Korban Pesach, according to some Tanoim, you're not mekayim after chatzos. The Noda B'Yehuda in his Hagos in Chas Pesach, Dogel Mervovo, he says you cannot say the bracha Shekeshono Sesesono al Achilas Matzah after chatzos because of the shita that you're not yotze mitzvahs matzah after chatzos. The Alter Rebbe brings this in Hilchas Sukkah. Talks about whether it's raining and eating in the sukkah. Say if it's getting close to chatzos, make sure you eat your kazais before in the sukkah, kazais matzah. Kazais challah in the sukkah before chatzos, because the 15th of Nisan of Tishri is compared to 15th of Nisan, just like the kazais matzah has to be eaten before chatzos, so to the kazais of the sukkah has to be before chatzos. So it's brought like derech agav. So when you learn Hilchos Pesach, you learn the Seder night, it doesn't say anywhere. It says you should be Mizdaris or something. It doesn't say B'diyah. So now, what I'm seeing here is there is a strong emphasis to eat the kazas matzah for chatzos. Now, however, when you look in Hayom Yom, and it says how the Rabbeim were noyeg to have the first Seder, they would make sure to have the kafikoyim before chatzos. Sheik in the second Seder, says in Hayom Yom, but they started about 9 in the evening. And they would finish at 3-4 a.m. It doesn't say when they had the Marichim Bebir HaGoda, but Bepashas it means that Magid took several hours, and they had towards the end, well after Chatzos, that's when they had their Kazayas Matzah. That's the second night, because second night is the Rabbanon. Perhaps that's why they were not so worried. But my impression there is that they were making the bracha al achilas matzah after Chatzos also. So I don't have solid source for that, but it is, I just say, there seems to be, that's the indication you get from it. Okay, let's move on. So we just come from Yom Tov, and I noticed that some of the Baalei Tefillah did not say the Elokeinu Elokei ad Birchas Koyanim. We're not saying Elokeinu Elokei Avosenu Barucheinu V'Rosh Ha'am Shuleshes. Weren't saying it aloud. They were completely silent and just called out the word Koyanim, and not even finishing off with Am Kadeshecha Ko'amur. So let's explore this. And so here we have in Siman Kuf Chof Ches, there's Dinim Birchas Koyanim. So the first opinion in the Ramoth, I think, is Sif Yud. So he says that you shouldn't say Elokeinu Elokei Avosenu. Chazan shouldn't be saying this. When there's no Kohanim, of course, when no Birchas Kohanim, Chazan says this. But here, there is Birchas Kohanim. He shouldn't be saying this, because the real Birchas Kohanim happening here. V'yesh oimrim she'oimrim oisi b'lachash im milas koyanim, ad milas koyanim. Some say you should say Elokeinu Elokei Avosenu till the word Koyanim, at which point, and they say the word Koyanim aloud. And then and then the Chazan continues to say the words Am Kadeshecha Ko'amur b'lachash. That's the Ashkenaz minig. That the Chazan does say the whole paragraph, Elokeinu Elokei Avosenu, and says the word Koyanim aloud. The rest is quiet. Now, then here also the Alter Rebbe brings this, that the Chazan says, now in some places they wouldn't, they'd just be say the word Koyanim, but then Medidas Elu, the Chazan does say b'lachash quietly till the word Koyanim he says aloud, and then Am Kadeshecha Ko'amur he says b'lachash. All right, let's now look at the Alter Rebbe's Siddur, and we have here the Chazan says Elokeinu Elokei Avosenu Barucheinu till he comes to the word Koyanim. And then he says, that word, b'kol rom, he says aloud, koyanim. That is a kriya the koyanim, that is calling to the koyanim. Now, to prompting the koyanim to come forward and say their bracha. And then he finishes off with 3 words, Am Kadeshecha Ko'amur. Now, the word b'lachash is clearly missing in the little bit on the instructions which we have in the Alter Rebbe's Siddur. Reb Chaim Noah picks up on this omission. You see, the word b'lachash is left out. It's evident the Alter Rebbe says that no, you don't say it b'lachash as in a whisper. The Chazan should be saying b'kol beinoni kadarkoi. He should be saying Elokeinu Elokei Avosenu at a regular voice level. The word koyanim he should be saying aloud. And so, contrary to what you could have thought the word b'lachash means in a whisper, however you don't pshat in the Shulchan Aruch, but clearly in the Siddur, the guidance is not to say it in a whisper, to say it perhaps on a regular tone, perhaps an undertone, but not in a whisper. And the reason is because Elokeinu Elokei Avosenu, says Reb Chaim Noah, it's part of the davening. It's part of the davening. So what's the point of the Chazan saying his Chazor Hashatz quietly? His whole function is on behalf of the tzibur, and the tzibur should hear. As we know, the Rebbe talks about saying moedim, that some places the Chazan kind of falls silent when at moedim, because everyone's saying the other moedim. And no, the Rebbe says the Chazan should say moedim aloud, like a regular voice, not have to scream louder than everyone else, but it should be like the rest of Chazar Hashatz, at an audible voice. Okay, let's go on to another question. So someone asked me just this morning, so this is, are you allowed to put on a coat? It's Shabbos afternoon. You want to go for a walk, you want to go to shul, and the weather is nice now, but you've got to stay now Mincha Ma'ariv, and you are a Novi, and you know that by Ma'ariv time, or after Ma'ariv, it's going to be cold, and you don't want to catch a cold. So are you allowed to wear a coat on Shabbos? So you don't need it now. but you want to do it. You want to do it so that you shouldn't catch a cold later. So this is shulchan. I remember clearly that the Shmiras Shabbos Chosa allows this, but it's based upon a psak of Rabbi Shlomo Zalman, and you can see it on the screen. This is written in his second volume of Minchas Shlomo. He says, it seems to me that a person is allowed to walk out on Shabbos. So no, let's read the principle. You're allowed to walk freely on Shabbos, wherever you want to go. If that means, as a result, you're going to have to take with you a coat to be able to wear later. Now he's talking about Nezasrol and Erev, but he says you're allowed to go out with the intention of coming later. If that means taking a coat with you, so then don't say, oh, he's preparing for night. He says, no, since it's not hachona, it's not doing it to save money or effort for night. It's just to protect himself from catching a cold. So he says he's allowed to take the coat with him. I think he's actually talking about carrying, as I said, within the area. Now, another variation is in the next paragraph. He talks about, again, within the area, you want to leave the house, and this can be relevant also on Yom Tov. You leave the house, you're not to carry. You want to take a key with you. You don't need the key till after Yom Tov. So if you say you can't take a key, that means you can't leave the house. Are you only need the key by night? He says that's not really not an issue. Because that is the derech, he says. That's normal when you leave the house, you take a key with you. So it's as if the taking the key is enabling you to leave the house. It's a slightly different. Both of these, the sympathy is there, not such clear halachas. Say these are svaras or Zalman. He's mat here. Then later he was challenged a little bit with this, and so he's said, "Well, you're not allowed to." For example, Alter Rebbe is quite clear about this in Hilchos Yom Tov, to go to the wine cellar on the afternoon to bring up wine for the nightfall for Havdalah or something. That wouldn't be allowed. If there's an Eruv, to bring your Megillah to Shul, so that is if on Yom Shabbos afternoon for night. So that's not allowed. Or on Tisha B'Av to bring on Shabbos afternoon, if Tisha B'Av is Motzei Shabbos, to bring with your slippers to Shul within the Eruv, that wouldn't be allowed. So he says that is clearly because what you're doing is you don't need it now. It's something which is clearly associated with choil, but protecting yourself from the cold is that when that's not choil or kodesh. It's nothing to do with Shabbos or not. It just happens to be that you know that it's going to be colder later at night, after nightfall. But in principle, protecting yourself from cold is not a choil activity. Then it's interesting. Towards the end, he says, Kimuduma, my impression is that people on Shabbos and Yom Tov they go for an outing with the children, they will take with a supply of chitulim, of diapers, also for after nightfall. But he says, I want to emphasize, this is ha'ora li'ayin v'chalil l'maisa. So to go out on Yom Tov or on Shabbos within the Erev with a supply of diapers to also for after nightfall, here he says chalil l'maisa. He doesn't want to allow that, but he doesn't seem to cancel his view about wearing a coat for afterwards. That seems to be okay. Right. I just a variation on that. My son Mendel, he mentioned a couple of years ago. So the kids were coming to us the family were coming to us for the Seder night, the second Seder. And so they had nice Yom Tov outfits and bought for them like aprons, change of that they shouldn't dirty their Yom Tov outfits at the Seder night with all the spilling wine. So it's carrying, so the Shali got Monday and Tuesday. On Monday afternoon, they're going to come for the Seder, which is going to be Monday night. So it's bringing clothes on Monday, which is Yom Tov Rishon, for Monday night, which is Yom Tov Sheni. So to put them to carry a bag of these clothes from one day to the next would be a problem. Unless it's together in the bag, there's also some stuff which they'll need for that day. But that is, I do see that as a problem to take stuff. But I think the svara which Shlomo Zalman is saying, you're carrying with you a coat. And as I say, that's better than the story with the key. You're carrying with you a coat with you because you may be cold later. That's not a me Shabbos l'chayil. That is to make sure that when it gets colder, you have your coat with you. That's as much as I can say for the moment. Let's move on. Right. So I have here about feedback on rounding off the corner of a capota to avoid the need to equip it with tzitzis. So a couple of people um, wrote to me about this. What I'd said last time, if you remember, was how the sheer beged, smallest beged, is 3 by 3 finger breadths, which is 6 by 6 centimeters. So to make that to kind of like a CD, the old CD discs would measure 12 centimeters across. So make a circle that they should be from 6 centimeters from either corner should already start curving. So one of the people who wrote to me is a Rosh Hashanah in Crown Heights, and he referred to me to various poskim who are much more lenient about this. And what I've seen is that, particularly the Yaakov Emden, says he's questioning this whole idea. Who says that rounded corners take off the chiyuv of tzitzis? Who says the corners have to be pointy? Why can't they, if they're a little bit curved, they're not called corners? And somehow, and therefore back to underpin the logic of making this shear, rather than saying, oh, it's a rounded corner, it's to say that the beged doesn't have a corner at all because it's a sheer beged. That's the 3 by 3 is a sheer beged. It's not that it's a corner which is rounded, but there's no corner at all because it's that the beged there has got no edge, no corner. However you work out the lomdus. So another one of our listeners asked me, how rigid is this? Because sometimes people, and this is particularly relevant with the capotas, where you've got the two front corners are fairly pointy, and if you've got a split at the back, and so what the tailors generally do, sew the inner flap of the split at the back, they sew the inner one to be rounded. Sometimes the rounding is not as round as described in last year. So how rigid how strict is this halacha? So the answer is that actually there are poskim who are more lenient. They say if it looks round, that's good enough. So there are poskim to rely on. Chatchila, for Chaim Noah, tells us to make this rounded this year of 6 centimeters. Certainly worthwhile following that. And I responded also that about Shabbos, for last Shabbos was published a sikha, and what the Lahak do, who published these sikhas, they published every week a couple of letters which have never been printed before, letters of the Rebbe. So here there's a letter from Chof Beis Tammuz Tov Shin Mem to one by the name of Rabbi Moshe Hirschman. Never heard of him before, and he's asking things about the Alter Rebbe Siddur, Nusach, etc. Rather, no massive chidushim, but the Rebbe does at the end. There's an NB, Nichnichta V'tzidoi, V'nagei Shiurim, reference the idea of quantities for mitzvahs. The Rebbe says, look up the Sefer Shiurei Torah, written by Harav Noah, Yerushalayim Tovshin Zion, Boy Mevoy Eres Shitas Chabad Bozeh, which I found quite remarkable, that the Rebbe is giving a stempel of approval that what Reb Chaim Noah says in the Shiurim It's Shitas Chabad Poseh. And although here we're not talking about, well, it is also shiurim. Yes, the shiurim of exempting a garment from tzitzis. So the Rebbe says that Shitas Chabad is what Reb Chaim Noah established. So I'd keep to that, even though the Shas Chak, there are more lenient opinions, but I think the Frierdiker Rebbe also had said about him, as unser Pesach. One last question which I have, which I want to address, is about letters for tzedakah. Now there is a strong thing of malim ayin minat tzedakah, to ignore someone who comes for tzedakah and you ignore them. Now that's quite a serious thing. Now, so you try to give them something, yeah, and really you have to give them day machsore. So now this what you have on the screen is from the Sefer Tzedakah or Mishpat. It specializes in Hilchos Tzedakah. It's today you have individuals who may send hundreds of letters to people who are far away, and it becomes difficult to mail to each one a small amount of tzedakah. Are you in violation of the law of ignoring the poor man? And he quotes the Sefer Be'er Moshe, who says you would be in violation even though you did not meet the poor man face to face, even if it's just a letter. That's what he says. Be'er Moshe says that even a letter, a plea for tzedakah through a letter should also be the same as if the pauper had been right in front of you. But the Rav Beloy is a little bit less extreme. You could argue and say, no, it's if you know of a poor man, but it's not in front of you, then perhaps you aren't in violation of ignoring to help. And then there's another level. Now, they said there's a mitzvah de machsore. You should be helping them to cover their needs. But then there is actually, once the person has already gone to machaz al hapsochim, is going knocking on doors, then you're not mechuyev to fulfill their need because they are going around, and you give them a small contribution, but you don't have to fulfill their need. And therefore, he says, perhaps you could say you're not in violation of ignoring to help. So he says that to say that you're not overdoing machsore, okay, but he's not so sure whether there's no violation at all. This is one source, and then we have another source I presume this is the same Be'er Moshe, which Rav Bloy mentions, though he's very much a contemporary of his, Debretziner in Borough Park, who asked this question: are you in violation of ignoring tzedakah, please, by a letter received in the mail? And he discusses whether receiving a letter is the same as being confronted face to face. And he refers to the Lashon, the Rambam, called Hamalim A'einav min tzedakah, one who ignores tzedakah. It doesn't say Hamalim A'einav min ha'oni. And therefore, the fact that there's a plea for tzedakah in front of you, even though you don't have a physical pauper, it should also be included in this halach. And he finishes off and says the following: if the letter has been signed by a Rav Mumche, Bezdin, a person who you have reason to trust that it's an authentic request, and this authority is endorsing that this is a bona fide case, then the person writes that it's all Yidden to help this person, then there is a mitzvah of tzedakah incumbent upon the recipient. And by ignoring it, you'd be ignoring a chiyuv of tzedakah, even though you don't see the poor person in front of you. And he writes, indeed, that's what I do. Every request which is supported by a Bezdin or a Rav Muvhak, who is familiar, who's authenticating that they're familiar with the predicament of this poor person, then I send them something. So it's not a clear-cut thing. And why is it? At least what you're seeing here is, if the plea is authenticated by authority, that's Be'er Moshe. To say you're over in our Torah, no, but there seems to be recommended, at least. One should be giving a little bit to each of those cases. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to stop here and wish you all a good Shabbos, and should to hear Besoros Hagula and Mashiach Tzidkenu b'meher v'yameinu mamish.
Amen. Yasher koyach. Gesund zusammen.
Thank you.